1588, 23 years before the release of the King James Bible, William Whitaker wrote, "Learned men question whether the Greek version of the Scriptures now extant be or be not the version of the 70 elders. The sounder opinion seems to be that those who determine that the true Septuagint is wholly lost and that the Greek text as we have it is a mixed and miserably corrupted document." He said, what we have now, we're calling a Septuagint, this is just a horrible translation. And so for what particular reason do you think that Christ quoted from it? People say, well, we have manuscripts of the Septuagint, but with 4 possible exceptions I'm going to mention real quickly, every one of them comes after 350 AD. And they say, see, Christ quoted from this, because there are a few places where it matches. From 350 AD is long after the time of Christ. Whoever produces that can go back and match word for word what Christ said, rather than it be the other way around. There have been 4 fragments called the Rylands Papyrus that have been found. 3 of them were found in one place, the 4th in a different place in Egypt, and they all have little pieces of Deuteronomy, and they go back from before that time. However, the verses in them are not quoted by anybody in the New Testament, Jesus or the apostles. They don't have anything to do with this debate. They do prove somebody produced a Greek Old Testament of some kind back that early, but it doesn't tell you anything about what Christ or the apostles were saying or doing. In the last century, a professor named Paul Cayley, he was a German professor of Oriental Studies, addressed this issue of the Septuagint and what's involved. He's a recognized scholar of Mid-Eastern languages. He said, it is silly to believe anything based on the letter of Aristeas, really. He said it's just propaganda. He says fiction. And he says what we have the Septuagint at, calling it the Septuagint today, probably has nothing to do, and if it has in any way anything to do with an early Greek translation, we have no way of knowing it because we do not have a quotation of anything from before the time of Christ. He's not exactly a King James guy or a Bible believer or an evangelical. He just said, listen, guys, you cannot take this fairy tale and build an idea off of it. It doesn't hold. And he, I think, would be shocked to see what's happened more recently when folks took this fairy tale and not only built an idea off it, they built a doctrine out of it. For them, this is the fundamental doctrinal position that describes the nature of Scripture. Christ used the Septuagint. The Septuagint doesn't match the Textus Receptus. Consequently, it cannot matter the exact wording of Scripture. It just can't matter. How do you know? And I've asked dozens, by email and in person. I've asked critics. I've asked people I don't know anything about. I've asked friends. Why do you think Christ used the Septuagint? Now, this is not some little quibbling about a minor detail. This is what their doctrine of Scripture is based on. And I say their doctrine of Scripture is not based on a biblical statement at all. It's not even based on confusing a biblical statement. I've seen again and again folks address the issue. You saw a quote in this conference, but people have addressed the issue of the preservation of Scripture and said things similar to what Larry Oates said. God could have preserved His Word, but history teaches us He didn't.